a Beautiful World.
I'm Heather McElhatton, and this is A Beautiful World. This week we meet Ariel Berger, a teacher, writer, and ordained rabbi. His debut novel, Witness, recounts his years as Elie Wiesel's teaching assistant. Most of the world knows Wiesel as a Holocaust survivor, a human rights activist, a confidant of presidents and prime ministers, and a Nobel Peace Prize winner.
But if you asked him who he was, he always said, I'm a teacher, and that's what inspires everything else that I do, and it's the last thing that I'll ever give up. And so I experienced his classroom in Boston, where he taught for almost 40 years, as a very magical, transformative space. And I wanted to share that experience with the world because there was very little written about that.
Elie Wiesel was born in 1928 in part of Europe that changed borders and names many times. In 1944, his community was deported to concentration camps. He lost his family, his mother, his sister. He wrote about these events after the war in his book called Night. Over the decades, Wiesel taught his students that when anyone is suffering, when any community is threatened, even with genocide, each one of us, every one of us, has a responsibility to speak up in protest or in solidarity with them.
And that's what he did. He traveled around the world, speaking up wherever there were instances of violence or genocide. And he traveled to Cambodia and South America and Yugoslavia. He spoke up about Rwanda and Darfur, and was known for his compassionate work around the world.
After enduring so much pain and hardship, one question Wiesel commonly got from his students was, what saved him? What can save us?
He said, learning saved me, and I believe it can save us. And he told the story that after liberation, he and other young people were taken to an orphanage, and the adults in charge asked all the children what they wanted. And some children asked for chocolate or coffee or a warm sweater. But Professor Wiesel said, I asked for the same volume of Talmud, the traditional Jewish text, that I was studying before the war, so that I could pick up my studies exactly where I had left off when the Nazis invaded. And that's what saved me, my commitment to learning and my love of learning. It saved my sanity and it saved my hope. And I believe that it can save all of us.
Wiesel believed education was a shield and that patience was the ultimate virtue.
Not everyone has that patience. And teachers are amazing people because they have not only patience, but the compassion to stay with students through sometimes what are steep learning curves. And so I think I saw that in him, and I saw that in ways that were sometimes really astonishing.
The student-teacher relationship is essential to the Jewish tradition, according to Marcia Zimmerman, senior rabbi at Temple Israel in Minneapolis.
Especially with survivors of the Holocaust, who in the next 10 years, there will be no longer first-hand witness survivors. And so it is the responsibility of family and the students of Holocaust survivors to continue the legacy and telling the story, so we can again remind ourselves that we have to fight oppression and hatred wherever we find it. It is to promise for this never to happen again, not only to the Jewish community, but to any community.
One of Wiesel's most important lessons was how to confront darkness without despair.
He said that hatred is a kind of cancer, and it's contagious, and so we have to intervene right away. But at the same time, we need to be careful not to become infected by it. The role of learning and education and joy and friendship and laughter are all connected and all critically important as we confront hatred. And one of the dangers in confronting hatred and paying attention to the suffering in the world is to not fall into despair. He felt very strongly that hope is a moral act too, that hope is a choice. He quoted Albert Camus, where there is no hope, we must create it.
Rabbi Zimmerman agrees. We must look forward, not back.
A Beautiful World looks at the reality that the world is changing at an exponential speed. We need to open ourselves up to that change rather than close down and want to go backwards. We need to go forward with this kind of sense that we're not there to protect what once was all the time. We need to take the wisdom of what once was and to almost ride the wave of change in order for us to move forward.
You can find out more about using education as a shield, the power of patience, and dancing during despair in Ariel Berger's debut novel, Witness, and online at abeautiful.world. I'm Heather McElhatton, and this is A Beautiful World.
Brought to you with help from the Pohlad Family Foundation.